I love the idea of having a 4-piece rod that can be packed down with ease, especially for longer trips, but I don't like the loss of quality that usually happens when you make a rod from a 1 or a 2-piece into a 4-piece. In today's video, we are hopefully going to cover an awesome middle ground between all these. This right here is the Daiwa Presso 4-piece travel rod. We're gonna talk about the features, all the specs, what I like about it, what I'm worried about with this rod, and hopefully go catch a fish on it too. So stay tuned, let's get into it. First, let's go over the specs on the rod that I have right here with me. This is the PSO 604 ULFS-TR for the model number. This rod is a 6-foot ultralight rod. This is a fast action. This has 8 guides. The line weight is 1 to 6 pounds. The lure weight is 1/32 to 1/4 ounce. This is a 4-piece rod, and the MSRP is coming in anywhere from $80 to $100. The rod itself comes packed in a nice little carrying case. What I like about it is that it's not super heavy, unlike some of those big heavy, those big bulky fly rod tubes. Sometimes those things can be a pain in the butt to pack in. But on this thing, it's nice and soft and it folds away really easily. You don't feel like you're carrying a lot of extra, materials on your actual hike. As for reel today, we're gonna be pairing it with the Daiwa Revros 1000. I wanted a reel today that is going to match with this rod well and keep the entire setup under $150, as I know that's a big price point for a lot of people trying to buy an ultralight setup. The features that really stuck out to me on this rod were the IM7 graphite construction, the micro pitch taping during the curing process, and the Minima guides and reel seat. As for the overall, features of this rod, the descriptions weren't very feature rich compared to Daiwa's other products. However, I do really like the look of the rod, and I believe it feels lightweight and it's very balanced in my hands, which, that's the most important part to me. Now, granted, today I'm fishing a float for majority of the day. I may go to spinners later. So sensitivity, I'm not really gonna be able to test it out as much as I could. But I do like overall the sensitivity, even as I'm reeling my setup back in. It does feel very nice and light. And I feel like you're going to do a pretty good job of reading bites on this. As for casting as well, I do have 6-pound braid on this reel. So I'm expecting to get pretty good casts with light lures, especially considering the fact that this is an ultralight rod and it's got a good amount of flex on it to load up on some of those, super finesse light presentations like I'm using today. There we are. That was quick. Wow, that bobber shot under. Cool, beautiful little rainbow. Rod's got a pretty good amount of flex. I like fighting the fish at least. The rod's got a pretty good amount of bend to it. Granted, this does look like a little stalker, so hopefully we do hook into a wild fish later, and that'll give us a little better test of, the overall action. But this is a pretty nice fish. I've never fished this place before, and I was not expecting this quality of trout in here. Cool little fish right there. Beautiful little rainbow. Smacked that bobber, man. That bobber went shooting down. And there he goes. Well, overall, I was very impressed with the actual, bend and action of the rod. I thought it played the fish really nicely, as well as it just has the perfect amount of load for lighter lures like what I'm using today. We're just using a little bit of, a little float, so a split shot, and just a tad piece of bait on the end. Kind of your most simple finesse creek setup that you can possibly do, and obviously that's working great. I really like the looks of this rod as well. It has a very Japanese feel to it, in my opinion. A lot of the Japanese rods, I feel like, have this style of cork and colorway, and just the overall aura of this rod is very JDM-esque to me. And I love JDM stuff, so this thing is really, really neat. I love that those orange accents in there on the side. The cork also feels pretty high quality. It's really comfortable in your hand to hold, which is nice. And I love that split grip on the bottom here. Typically, I'm a full cork kind of guy, but on a little ultralight rod like this, I actually like that split grip. I think it kind of, helps take out some weight and adds to that overall sensitivity and balance of the rod. It looks really good with that Daiwa Revros too. I love how the Daiwa Revros has kind of that yellowish gold, and it matches decently close to the gold of the Presso on that side there. So, and then all 4 pieces look really good connected together as well. I really like the overall aesthetic of the rod. It's a very nice looking Daiwa rod. One thing that I am not a fan of with this rod, however, is the hook keeper on it. I've talked about this in other videos, and actually I've talked about this with the Daiwa Tatula rods. The hook keeper on this is faced downwards, and I understand that they're trying to face that hook keeper down to keep it more flush, but it makes it very hard to put a hook in between that little thing. When it's faced the other way, it's much easier to get a hook in and just not worry about it. And especially if you're using a larger lure with like a treble hook or something along those lines, it's going to be very tough getting that hook through the actual loop of that, unless you want to just loop the hook over and just keep the tension holding it. But I don't like that. I like to actually put the hook through that little loop inside there. And it just takes a couple extra seconds to do it on this rod, which I'm not a big fan of. That's a fish, 100% fish. Oh, I see one behind him too. Yeah, I'm really, really excited with this little rod. I'm really liking the action. I'm liking the bend overall on this. This is pretty cool. All right, buddy. All right. Let's see if it's stocked. Yeah, it's still looking like it's stocked based on the top fin, but overall, the actual quality of the fish, this is a pretty good looking stalker if I don't say so myself. All right, buddy. Hooks out. See ya. As far as price goes, this rod doesn't really stand out to me as any insane budget ultralight rod. This rod is getting around that $80 to $100 range, so it's definitely getting to a point where it's becoming more of an expensive piece of equipment. It doesn't stand out if you compare it to other rods in that $100 range. However, if you compare it to overall 4-piece rods, this rod is phenomenal compared to some of the products that are in today's market. Unlike some 4-pieces, this rod doesn't feel weak in your hand as you use it. It also feels really balanced. Sometimes on 4-piece rods, you can have some problems with, the balancing on it, or just the overall sensitivity because it is so many pieces connected into one, right? It doesn't transfer very well down to the blank, but this rod does a great job at doing that. I will definitely be including this setup in my arsenal, especially for a lot of my backcountry trips. If I'm going, 10, 11 miles in, it would be really nice not to have to carry a 2-piece rod and still have something I can pack down, but also something that is quality and that I can actually use and be confident and enjoy using, which is something you can't say about a lot of other 4-piece rods. This would also make for a really cool little pack rod to have in your car. That's probably what I will do with this rod, is when I'm not using it for a backcountry mission, I will probably have this in the back seat of my car, just in case I'm going somewhere and I find a really good looking stream and I want to go and explore it. I have a really good option to be able to do that. Or if I'm fishing somewhere with buddies and I just need an extra rod, I think it would make for a great setup there as well. I do think for that $100 price range, I think there's better rods to be used as your main rod, just your go-to, go into a stream, right? You don't need a 4-piece. I think there's better options, included just the regular Daiwa Presso. The regular 2-piece itself is an awesome rod. However, if you need a 4-piece rod, I don't think there's a lot of of better choices on the market, at least the American market, for under that $100 price range. I think this is going to be very, very high ranked in that list. Like I said before, the reel I have on here is also a very important part of this overall combo. And if you guys want to see a review on this guy, I will have that right up top for you. On this other side, I also got another really good ultralight rod in this same category that I think you guys are going to like as well. So hopefully you guys learned something from today's episode. Hopefully you got a kick out of it, and we'll see you guys next time on Humbug Videos.